And it's my face. Welcome back to this 1971 Giallo film recap here on The King in Giallo. For 1971, I did 17 in-depth film reviews, and this video will be me going over some of the films that I watched. I will be talking about the AZ cliches that I observed. I will talk about the lowest score, the highest score, what the mean is, what the most common of those AZ cliches were, what the least common were. I'll go over the ranking of the Jolly Tally for these films, at least what the top 10 were. I'll talk about my favorite male actor, favorite male performance, favorite female actor, favorite female performance. I'll also talk about my favorite directors for 1971, my favorite writers, favorite music, such as the composer, favorite overall score, favorite piece of music, as well as my favorite scenes, my favorite endings or reveals, my favorite kills, my favorite scripts, and then I will do my top 10 Jello films for 1971. And let's get right to it. So, first off, the 17 films that I covered in order were The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, The Fourth Victim, The Cat o' Nine Tails, The Black Belly of the Tarantula, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, Slaughter Hotel, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, An Ideal Place to Kill, also called Oasis of Fear, The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, The Fifth Chord, Cold Eyes of Fear, A Bay of Blood, The Blood-Stained Butterfly, Short Night of Glass Dolls, and Death Walks on High Heels. So first, let's talk about the lowest score for the AZ cliches. The films with the lowest scores on that were it was two films that both got 13 out of 26 of the AZ cliches, and those were Cold Eyes of Fear and The Fourth Victim, which is kind of sounds about right because both of those films were two movies that I talked about as some circles are going to say these are not Giallo films. And in fact, neither of these films were mentioned in Troy Howard's book that I use as my main resource when I'm covering Giallo films, so seems about right. The highest score for 1971 was 22 out of 26 cliches. And again, this was a tie between two films. They were the most recent films, Short Night of Glass Dolls and Death Walks on High Heels. And then the average score for the AZ cliches for the 17 films was 17.4 out of 26. The most common AZ cliches I observed were E is for eyeballs, F is for fashion, which, again, I basically always give F is for fashion if I can justify it in some way, and I don't think there's been a movie yet that I haven't been able to justify it, so that one kind of goes without saying. Q is for questions, S is for secrets, T is for telephone, Y is for yelling, and Z is for zoom. Those cliches were observed in all 17 films. And then the least common cliches were B is for blind and P is for priest, only came up 4 times. And then D is for dwarves, never came up. So that's the one that was not observed at all. And before I go into the top scores for the Jolly Tallies, I will mention that the average score was 654.7 points. Okay, the top scores for the Jolly Tally were, Again, only the top 10 out of the 17. In 10th was The Fifth Chord. It got 19 out of 26 AZ cliches and a total of 651 points. Number 9 was Death Walks on High Heels with 22 out of 26 AZ cliches and a total of 663 points. Number 8 was The Bloodstained Butterfly with 20 out of 26 AZ cliches and a total of 679 points. Number 7 was A Bay of Blood with 18 out of 26 AZ cliches and 695 points total. Number 6 was The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, 19 out of 26 AZ cliches and 728 points. Number 5 was The Black Belly of the Tarantula, 19 out of 26 AZ cliches, 737 points total. Number 4 was The Case of the Scorpion's Tail with 19 out of 26 AZ cliches and 741 points total. Number 3 was A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, 17 out of 26 AZ cliches, 762 points total. Number 2 was Slaughter Hotel, 14 out of 26 AZ cliches, 827 points total. And number 1, which is currently first in the Jolly Tally, is Short Night of Glass Dolls, 22 out of 25 AZ cliches, 968 points total. Okay, my favorite male actors for 1971 in Giallo films were, I'm gonna kind of, so I don't really have one pick. This was kind of hard to pick who my favorite male actor was, but I have a lot of people to talk about. Jorge Regaud was at least in 2 or 3 movies. He's just always good to see. He's always competent. Love seeing him. Giancarlo Giannini was in Black Belly of the Tarantula as the lead and was really good. Frank Wolf, not sure if it's Wolf or Wolf. I've started saying Frank Wolf because I was like, oh, it's German, but he's an American actor, so it's probably Wolf. He was in Cold Eyes of Fear as well as Death Walks on High Heels, and he's also great. And unfortunately, I wish he was in more movies. More Giallo films. I think he's in like a grand total of maybe it's just those 2. I think he's in a third. I wanted to talk about Frank Wolf in the future because he tragically took his life in 1972, and it's just a really graphic story. I think he slit his own throat in a hotel in Rome, and really tragic. And I think that actor deserves a lot of credit, and it really is tragic that he took his life. Next actor I want to talk about is Carl Malden, who was in The Cat of Nine Tails, who is easily probably one of the greatest actors that was in a Giallo film. Like, really competent actor, great accolades. The fact that he was in one of these movies is spectacular. Next is Franco Nero, who was in The Fifth Chord, and I think that's it for this year. I love Franco Nero. He's been in a lot of great Italian movies in the 70s. I just love seeing him. So, yeah. Another actor is Helmut Berger, who was in, oh my gosh, The Bloodstained Butterfly. And another one of those actors that it's kind of crazy that he was in a Giallo film. He did a great job. He's a little all over the place, but it works. It works. Another actor I want to point out is Luigi Pistilli, who was in like at least 3 or 4, and he starred in like 2. He starred in The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire. He was one of the main characters in A Bay of Blood. He was a detective or a cop in, I want to say The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. And he's another one of those actors that you're going to see a lot, and I think he's great every time you see him. Alberto de Mendoza was also in a number of Giallo films in 1971. He was in The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. He was in also, oh man, I might have to just drop it in below because I don't think I can remember the other one he was in. Maybe he was in The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. Maybe. Let me just look at my list of movies. Was he in Black Belly? Can't recall. Anyways, moving on. Ivan Rasimov was in The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. Again, I think he was in another one. I think he was in one of the Forgotten Giallo films. But he's great. He's great. George Hilton was in The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. Also in, gosh darn it, why can't I remember these? Like I should have written them down. He was also in The Case of the Scorpion's. Did I say that already? No, he was in The Case of the Scorpion's Tail as well. And I think that's it. He again, I think he was actually in more. I think he was in a Forgotten Giallo film or two. He had a really busy year in 1971, so he's really someone I should highlight. And then John Sorrell, who was in A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, as well as Short Night of Glass Dolls. And John Sorrell's just great. He's all over this genre, and again, every time I see him, I love it. And even if he's sleepwalking through the movie, it's like he can pull it off. There's some people who appear in a lot of these movies, and they're sleepwalking through, and it's kind of like, come on, step it up. But my favorite male performance overall might not be a surprise because I talked about it in that movie review. Is Carl Malden in The Cat of Nine Tails. He just owns that character, and it is easily one of the greatest characters in a Giallo. Like I could go on about some of the other characters. Like I really like Franco Nero's character in The Fifth Chord, but Carl Malden is just a different breed of actor, and I think easily he gets my favorite performance, and it's a performance that might even be the best in Giallo, at least top 5 of all. Favorite female actors, Claudine Auger, who was in a number of movies. I really wish I'd written these down. I know she was in, I think, Black Belly of the Tarantula and A Bay of Blood. She's just killing it. She commands so much presence when she's on. Anita Strindberg, who was in A Lizard in a Woman's Skin and wasn't even credited in that, which is crazy. And then she was in The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. And again, she had a pretty good year. Ornella Moody? Ornella Muddy? I think it's Moody. She was in Oasis of Fear, also called An Ideal Place to Kill. I think she was like 17 or something in this movie. She may have been younger, but she was really good. I don't think you see her again in Giallo. I might be wrong on that, but she was like easily like a highlight for me in that movie. I really loved her character. Barbara Bach, who had a small role in Black Belly of the Tarantula and kind of a small role in Short Night of Glass Dolls, although it's a big part in terms of the importance in driving that plot. But for the small roles that she had in 1971, I think she's always a joy to watch. She's fun. Edwidge Fenwick was in the Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. She was in, this wasn't her first Giallo. She did a couple, she did one, at least one in the 60s, Top Sensation, I believe. And she'll go on to just be one of the female icons of this genre. And in that first Sergio Martino movie, She owns it. I'll mention this later, but The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward probably is like the best cast, or at least all of those Edwidge Fenech, George Hilton, Ivan Rasimov, Alberto de Mendoza. They are just killing it. It's such a great power cast. And then the my final favorite female actor in Giallo for 1971 is Florinda Bolkan in A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, who I want to say she like almost single-handedly just leads that movie. So my favorite female performance, it was kind of between Florinda Bolkan and Edwidge Fenech. I think I am going to say Edwidge Fenech only because when I think of The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, I do think of that whole cast, but I think Edwidge Fenech really brings it together. Florinda Bolkan, that's not to cut her short in what she did in A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, but when I think about that movie, I don't necessarily think about how great her performance was. Not that I think it was bad, obviously, but it's just not that, like, when I think of The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, Edwidge Fenech, I kind of is one of the things I just think about. Favorite director for Giallo in 1971? Ooh, this is so hard for me to choose. Dario Argento did two films. He did The Cat o' Nine Tails and Four Flies on Grey Velvet. And this is still in his prime years. And these two films complete the Animal trilogy. The previous year, he had The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And in this year, he has these two films which close out that trilogy. Or I guess you could also call it a cinematic triptych, which I sometimes use that phrase, which kind of makes me sound pretentious, but I don't always like saying thematic trilogy. It's pretentious for me to call it a cinematic triptych, but I like it. So Dario Argento is one of my choices for favorite director. Another one is Lucio Fulci, because Lucio Fulci is just he's so good, and I feel like not that he got off the rails as he went on, but I just think his earlier films, especially his earlier Giallo films, are just super competent, super competently written, and super competently directed. So I have to mention him. Mario Bava only had A Bay of Blood come out this year in terms of Giallo. Great film. Mario Bava is the grandfather of Italian horror, a master, and so he's always does great. Again, last year he had two films that I really like. So this year he only had one. Next director is Luigi Bazzoni, who I will probably always talk about. Only did about 3 Giallo films, but each one of them I think is a masterpiece in its own right. And in the 60s, he was one of my favorite directors. And in 1971, he's one of my favorite directors simply for The Fifth Chord. Aldo Lado was this his debut film? I think it was. And Short Night of Glass Dolls is a really good debut film. And if I'm wrong about that, he may have had one film before this, but in terms of Giallo, it's a really good debut film. And then the final director I'll talk about is Sergio Martino, who both debuted with The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward and did The Case of the Scorpion's Tail like months later. And I don't know if I can really say which is my favorite director for 1971. I think I have to say, based off of my top 10 Giallo films for 1971, how I rank them, I think I have to go to Sergio Martino, because they're two great films that came out in one year, and one of those films was his debut, and that carries a lot. If you start strong, it's a really good sign for me. And again, this isn't to discredit Dario Argento, but I'm not super crazy about Four Flies on Grey Velvet. And as much as I do like the Cat o' Nine Tails, it's crazy because he doesn't really like that overall film because the studio interferences and the promoter interference, they were trying to turn it into a crimmy, they were trying to turn it into all these things so they could just get more money. And it's a shame because it's like this guy basically set the Giallo genre in motion. I mean, of course, Bava really set the foundational work, but Bird of the Crystal Plumage, as I always said, is the trendsetter, is the one that really showed people that this is a genre that is can both get critical acclaim as well as make money, get asses in seats, and give to bastardize his efforts in making a second film is just undermining that genius director. And so I guess why I'm not necessarily giving him my favorite director for 1971 is not really entirely his fault in terms of Cat o' Nine Tails. Like I said, I really like Cat o' Nine Tails, but I feel like his directorial vision kind of got sabotaged. He wasn't able to do exactly what he wanted. But anyways, Sergio Martino, good on you. Great debut. Two great films in 1 year. Favorite writer. Now, I could talk about Fulci, who always has to have an influence on the movies he directs. Same with Mario Bava. Aldo Lotto also had input on his script, but favorite writer for 1971 is probably Ernesto Gastaldi, because of the 17 films that I covered, I think he wrote 3, maybe 4 in total for that year. And I think Ernesto Gastaldi is probably the best writer in Giallo. Like I said, Fulci is really good too. But in terms of just like a writer, like someone who's dedicated to writing, Ernesto Gastaldi is just pumping these scripts out. He's like Morricone in terms of he's just pumping work out year after year. So favorite writer goes to Ernesto Gastaldi for 1971. Favorite music. Okay, let's start with favorite composer. So there's 3 people I want to talk about, but one is the clear winner. But I want to talk about Nora Orlandi because The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward is an amazing score. Some amazing tracks in that film. But I do like the soundtrack, but through and through, it's not my favorite. But the songs that she nails are amazing. Next composer I want to talk about for 1971 is Stilvio Cipriani, who did 4 scores this year. So he is coming out of the gate swinging. Highlight him again. I think he is one of the. Now this is hard. This is really hard to say. He's one of the top 3 Giallo composers. Maybe top 5. There's just a lot of good composers, and some of them haven't come in yet. 1971. It'll be a couple years before we see some of the other ones, but need to highlight him, especially for this year. But the number 1 composer for Giallo films of 1971 is Ennio Morricone. He did 7 scores this year, and like they're really good. When you do Fifth Chord, Short Night of Glass Dolls, Cat o' Nine Tails, Black Belly the Tarantula. I think he did A Lizard in a Woman's Skin as well. Four Flies on Grey Velvet, Case of the Scorpion's Tail, I believe are all the ones he did. Again, I really hope I'm not wrong there, but hands down has to go to Morricone. My favorite scores for 1971 Giallo films. Mention Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, but like I said, when I listened through it through and through, it's not my favorite. Four Flies on Grey Velvet is another one. Again, there's some tracks that I really really like, and then there's other tracks that I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm not, it's fine. The I'm not choosing Four Flies on Grey Velvet because there's a lot of, what is it? Is it? It's not. Is it? It's not quite punk music, but I guess progressive rock. There's a lot of prog rock in Four Flies, and to me, it gets a little like not not saying it's a bad soundtrack. It's just there's a lot of stuff that I'm it's just not my cup of tea. But the best score is, in my opinion, The Cat of Nine Tails. When I listen to that, there's a lot of tracks that I really, really like, and even the ones that aren't standout to me are great. The mood of that film. Oh, hello. The mood of that film is really carried by the soundtrack. I mean, the visual atmosphere is also good, but the you know, with film, sound is 60% of your experience, and the visuals are the other 40%. But you change the music, it changes how you interpret what you're watching, and that soundtrack through and through is just doing a great job of inferring how you should be interpreting this movie. It's not the best way to word that, but you know what I'm trying to say. My favorite piece, excuse me if I mispronounce this, but it's Dies Irae. Dies Irae? I don't know. By Nora Orlandi. This track is so good, and it was taken by Quentin Tarantino and used in Kill Bill Volume 2. But there's like two or so iterations of this song that play throughout the movie, and every time they come in, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah. My favorite scene for a Giallo film in 1971. There are some. There's a few. Um, I will talk about this in the next section for my favorite ending or reveal, but the final scene in The Bloodstained Butterfly really made the movie for me. I thought the ending was phenomenal, and that ending scene was so great. Another one is A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and it's a combination of the hallucinations that Florina Balkan's character is experiencing, and this scene in particular is when we see like the bird that's chasing her, this weird, silly looking animatronic bird or puppet, but it's so crazy. It's so cool. It reminds me of the giant claw. And then as she's getting chased through the hospital and she comes across the vivisected dogs, like it's so crazy. It doesn't need to be in the movie, but I'm so glad it is. And I don't talk about special effects. I don't have like my favorite special effect, but that's probably my favorite special effect in Giallo. There's especially my favorite one that's not a kill. Yeah, I mean, the special effects team had to like go on trial because people thought they actually butchered dogs, which if you look at it, you can tell they're puppets, but in the brief moments that you see it in the movie, you can understand why people in the 70s thought that shit was real. And my favorite scene in Giallo in 1971, and this is one of my favorite scenes in Giallo in general. Easily, I'm not sure if this is absolutely my favorite, but this is, ooh, again my top three Giallo film scenes. Um, they're they're probably all tied for first, and it's funny because two of them are Luigi Bazzani films, and so my favorite scene is from The Fifth Chord. I talk about it all the time. This is the only scene in a Giallo film that actually had me scared when I first watched it. This scene with the kid locking up the house, and then you hear the music box. What do you call it? The Spieluhr, and you realize in this moment that the kid has just locked himself in the house with the killer. And it's like, not just did you lock him in, but it's like he imprisoned himself in the house. And then he gets chased, and it's just a brilliant scene. It's really frightening. My favorite ending or reveal. Ooh, The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward has a pretty good ending. It's just very typical of Ernesto Gastaldi. This, like, let me pull the rug out from you, and I think it's one of his better endings, where you find out that all the men were working together to kill her, and they actually saved her. She did not die, and um, who is it? George Hilton kills Ivan Rasimov, and then George Hilton and Alberto de Mendoza are driving off together. It's one of the funniest, unintentionally funny moments where I'd mentioned in that movie, in the movie review where I'm talking about it. I'm like, are they lovers? They seem like they're having a good time together. But that's a great ending. And then they see her and they freak out, and then they get chased by the police, and the car crashes. It's good. Not my favorite ending. Good reveal though. Bay of Blood. Bay of Blood is one of my favorite endings. Like, but I will say why it's not my absolute favorite. Real quick, let me actually go over to the fifth chord. I like the ending of the fifth chord. I like the reveal. It's a little weird of a reveal. I remember when you think about it, it's like, okay, so this guy is like spurned because this other guy doesn't love him back, and so he starts killing everyone. It's a little weird. It kind of makes me question, like, does that? A lot of times in Giallo, you just kind of get this explanation for what happens, and you don't always question it. So fifth chord, I both like it, but I also kind of have issues with it. Okay, now going back to A Bay of Blood. I love this ending. It makes me crack up every time. I'm the only reason I'm not saying this is my favorite ending is because it doesn't make the movie for me. Like, I think Bay of Blood is just a great Giallo, and the ending is poetic justice. It's a great comeuppance. It fits the movie perfectly, and I like it. But my favorite ending for Giallo in 1971 is The Bloodstained Butterfly, because that ending, I thought, like, transcended the whole movie. And some people may disagree with me, which is totally fine. But for me, that ending made the whole movie. If it would have been a different ending, handled differently, I probably would have just thought the movie was okay. But they play that song throughout the movie, that Tchaikovsky song, which I also didn't choose Bloodstained Butterfly for one of my favorite scores, because the score is fine, but it's really that Tchaikovsky song that they keep playing that made me really like the score. But again, it's like, well, that's not your score. That's just a piece of music that you took and used. But the ending in Bloodstained Butterfly is out of nowhere. It kind of becomes this, like, really poignant and poetic. And it's funny because it's like it. We see how, like, okay, so Helmut Berger, like, killed these people so he could get his girlfriend's killer out of jail, because it's like, oh well, he's obviously not the killer because two other murders or however many other murders occurred, so it must not be him. All his plan to get this guy out of jail just so he could personally kill him. And then the way it's shot, where, like, they start shooting each other, and then it's cutting to the flashbacks. And even though the movie pretty heavy-handed was implying that Helmut Berger was this girl's secret boyfriend, the way they reveal it is just beautiful. And I'm kind of a sucker for movies that, again, if people like, in a lot of modern horror, there's this, like, there's a lot of, like, high feminism and I don't mean that in like a critique, but it's just we get a lot of these women that are kind of taking their power back, and they do fucked up things that a lot of people don't really acknowledge, like the witch, Pearl, Midsommar, I guess Maxine. There's a lot of these movies where it's like people are like, yeah, yeah, you go, girl. It's like she just killed a bunch of people, or she killed her whole family, or she, and it's kind of like, is this really who you want to root for? I kind of am a hypocrite because that's how I feel about the Bloodstained Butterfly, where it's like I really am like, yeah, bro, yeah, get it. It's like, yeah, but he still killed people, but I just like because it actually it made me overlook the fact that I should be judging this guy as a monster, and I'm like, I get it, man. I get it. You loved her. You loved her. You guys, you had a beautiful romance, and this bastard stole it from you, and you had to do what you had to do in order to get vengeance for her. But it's obviously it's like he's not a good guy for doing that. But the movie did a really great job of basically making me care about him in those final moments, and I just think that ending is so well done, and the way how he's you see his look on his face, and it goes to the memories of her, and she's just sitting there like, with her knees up, her holding her knees, and she's just smiling at him, and he's just like has this like last little moment where he's remembering their time together, and the camera's pulling out of the room that these two men are gonna die in, and the camera will just pivot over to the one body, pivot over to him, pivot over to the body, pivot back and forth as it's pulling out. And these guys aren't going to be found for like months, like because nobody knows that they went here, and it's like a dilapidated, abandoned building. So it's like these guys probably aren't going to be found for years. But I love that ending. I thought it, like I said, it made the Bloodstained Butterfly for me. I mean, and the movie was already unique on its own, but yeah, I gotta save something to talk about that movie when I mention it later. Favorite kill. Okay, this is really hard. I'll mention this one first. The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. This one kill is just so deliciously giallo. There's some colored light. The what is it, like a bottle that's used to kill someone? It's almost given me like New York Ripper feels a little bit. It's a great kill that I wanted to mention, but it's not my favorite kill. So here's the thing. There's two movies I can pick for favorite kill. One of them has a great giallo kill, and the other one has 7 great kills. But here's the thing. So A Bay of Blood has probably the greatest amount of kills in a giallo. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. So the first kill with the old woman, with someone throws a noose around her, pushes her out of the wheelchair. The way it's shot is just amazing. Then when the teens all get killed, the German girl, again, I'm almost at a loss for words. It's just the way it's shot and how graphic it is. It's like, yes, you can see how slashers are going to see this and go, let's do that. Let's focus on the violence. The kill after that, where the guy gets a bill hook in the face. So good. And then the double kill with the two people having sex on the bed, getting speared together. Great. The decapitation scene of Laura Betty is great. It's a little cheap, but it's just great. You don't see a lot of graphic kills like this in giallo. You mean, you kind of do when giallo is not slasher. Slasher, it's way more emphasized on the violence. Some giallo films will be a little bit more tame, and sometimes some will be over the top. So when a giallo film does kind of go over the top, it just feels good. So that decapitation, and then when Luigi Pistilli spears, what's his name? Oh shit, he's the brother. He's the brother of someone. Oh my god, what's the guy's name? Excuse me. Claudio Camaso? Yeah. Yeah, he's the brother of John Maria Volante. Um, do I have did I cover him as a different name? Yeah, Claudio Volante. Um, yeah, when Luigi Pistilli spears him, that's a great kill. And then the final kill that with the where Luigi Pistilli and Claudine Auger get shotgunned. There's so many great kills in the movie, and they're so well done. The special effects are great. The way, especially the first two, three, the way those, I don't know, a lot of the, just all of the kills, the way they're shot is and edited is great. But I think favorite singular kill. And again, I'm still not sure about this. I do love those Bay of Blood kills, but I can't really say there's one over any of the others that I think is my favorite. But my favorite kill, probably singularly for 1971 in Giallo, is Black Belly of the Tarantula. This kill, this kill reminds me of why I love the one kill in The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. They're very similar. They're very similar. Um, there's a lot of sex and violence, but it's done in a tasteful way. You don't see the violence and you don't see the nudity, but Black Belly of the Tarantula is, I think, in this scene especially, kind of shows how it was made to be a clone of The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And some people might say, how can you say that? And it's like, well, come on. Like, of a lot of these movies were trying to bank on how successful The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is. And I think Black Belly of the Tarantula is probably the one that did it the best, at least in that first year coming off of its success. So that kill is my favorite. My favorite script. This is a hard one, and I don't know if I can pick a single one. A Bay of Blood has a great script through and through. Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward also has a great script. A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, great. And Short Night of Glass Dolls. I really don't know if I can pick one of these scripts over the others, but I guess it's a four-way tie. I guess those are my four favorite scripts for 1971. All right, and now my top 10 Giallo films of 1971. Number 10. This is actually a tie. The Case of the Scorpion's Tail by Sergio Martino and Four Flies on Grey Velvet by Dario Argento. I don't know if I can pick one over the other. I do like both of these. I do like both of these films, but I also kind of have. There's some things that stick out to me for these movies. Four Flies, there's a lot of stuff that bothers me. I will say this about Four Flies on Grey Velvet, though. I love the music. The atmosphere is really good, and the killer. Not when you find out who it is, but the aesthetic of the killer with the mask and like was wearing like a little tuxedo or something. I love that look. That is easily my favorite look of a killer in Giallo. But when I saw Four Flies on Grey Velvet for the first time, I felt very underwhelmed. And I do like the ending, but I can't shake the fact that I felt very underwhelmed by that movie. And I do think it is the weakest in the Animal trilogy. The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, it's got an Ernesto Gastaldi script, so it's always going to pull the rug out from under you at the end. I do like it. Although Gastaldi scripts can get kind of predictable, where the guy who's the romantic guy who's helping out turns out to be the killer. It happens like in almost all of his scripts. So if you kind of catch on to that, it's like not really a surprise in this movie. Um, but yeah, I do like the Case of the Scorpion's Tail. Maybe I like it a little bit. I see. I can't even say I like it a little bit more than Four Flies, because the truth is, I think it's probably a more competent movie. But when Four Flies is batting, batting correctly, and it's batting right, it's hitting home runs. So that's the thing, is Four Flies, it's got better moments in my opinion, but there's just a lot of stuff in that movie that I don't really like. But again, this, I'm not saying I don't like the movie. Obviously, it's in my top 10 of these movies, and there's 6 other movies that I could have chosen. But that's it. It's a tie between those two. Number 9, The Bloodstained Butterfly. I like this movie. I do like this movie. Like I already said, the ending really made it for me. And that's not to say that I thought the movie was bad, going into the ending, or it was boring. It was different. There's not a lot of Giallo movies that are this type of court drama. So that was really cool. That was really, really interesting. And this was, again, I want to say this was a first effort on, who is it? Damiano Damiani, or, no, I'm sorry. Duccio Cesare. This is a great first Giallo. And I believe this is his first Giallo. But yeah, I kind of already talked about it when I was talking about the finale, my favorite ending. So I do like the movie. There is some stuff, like I've said, that the movie kind of lays it out for you, kind of spells it out for you a little too obviously, that Helmut Berger's character knew the girl who was murdered. He was clearly the guy that she was having her secret rendezvous with. The movie is not subtle in the slightest about hiding that. And so I think if you get to the end and you're like, what? He was her boyfriend? It's like, were you not paying attention? Like yeah. But despite that, it sticks the landing, which is so weird because it did everything to trip over itself. But it's a good movie. Number 8, Death Walks on High Heels. This might be my favorite Luciano Ercole. Yeah, Luciano Ercole Giallo. I'm not. I've only seen, I think, 3 of his movies at this point, and I think I do like this over Forbidden Photos and over Death Walks at Midnight. It just feels like a really good kind of whodunit. Again, it's kind of obvious that it has to be Frank Wolf's character. It has to be, because otherwise it would be her boyfriend, who, my God. Oh, Simone Andreu. I was like, why can't I remember his name? Um, it's like the killer. He's got a balaclava on. He's got contacts in, and he's using a voice changer, but he's got a British accent. And it seems like they're trying too hard to have her boyfriend be the red herring. And all these other red herrings that they introduce in the movie, like Jorge Rigaud's character and the hired help, the guy who's like a little like a pervert. I mean that because he's staring at Nieves Navarro. I don't say that because he's a crossdresser, but they have these other red herrings. But it's like, but they can't be the person who was in Paris, who was stalking Nieves Navarro. So it kind of has to be Frank Wolf's character, because I mean he was there, and regardless, I think it's a good, I think it's a good script. I think it's a good movie. It's, again, it's very different. The whole Jewel Heist plot, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about the movie. I thought it was very refreshing, and I thought it was a fun ride. And I like the two constables. I like the two Scotland Yard detectives. I thought they had good chemistry together, and for a couple guys who you don't really see return to the genre, I think they did a really great job. And they're probably up there with some of my favorite detectives in the genre. Number 7 is A Lizard in a Woman's Skin. This kind of falls into this Fulci category of his early Giallo films where I recognize that it's really good, but there's just something about it that, like, I don't totally adore. Maybe it's because Perversion Story and A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, maybe it's because I've only seen them on like old DVDs, and so the color is kind of muted. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But and like, I don't want to say anything that like shits on Fulci, because like, how dare I? But I do think the scripts are a little bit better than. Oh, see, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that the scripts are better than how they're directed, because they're directed phenomenally too. But I don't know. Like, yeah, I almost don't want to say anything negative. Like, I love the movie. I love Fulci. It's a great movie. It's a great, like, mystery, figuring everything out, and that the reveal has been ripped off recently. There was some movie or series on Netflix that was like the girl in the window across the street from the whatever. It's some stupid name, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a Giallo name, or that's like you're trying to rip off a Giallo. And I had asked a coworker at my previous job who had seen it with his wife. I asked him if, like, does this happen? Does this happen? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so it's ripping off A Lizard in a Woman's Skin in terms of like, oh, I saw something, but I'm also the killer. Um, Anyways, great movie. Check it out. Number 6 is The Black Belly of the Tarantula. Like I already stated, this is probably one of the best clones of The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And again, that's not to undermine this movie and say it's just a ripoff, because it's not. It's doing its own thing. Giancarlo Giannini is great in it. Love that mustache. The whole plot with the tarantula venom, or is it tarantula venom, or is it a hornet's venom? Whatever it is that's used to paralyze the victims, and so the killer can just like kill them while they're feeling all the pain but unable to move. That's brutal, and that's a great little touch that you don't see in a lot of horror. Um, what else can I say about Black Belly of the Tarantula? The music has grown on me. First, I was kind of like, "What is this?" It's a little too like hyper sexy, a little sultry, but it's grown on me, and it's a good reveal at the end who the killer is, and the reason is good. Number 5 is The Cat o' Nine Tails. I talked about this in my review for it, that I really like The Cat o' Nine Tails. A lot of times where a Giallo director makes a movie that they kind of don't like, or they kind of disown, I always end up liking it. And first time I saw The Cat o' Nine Tails, I thought it was good, but again, I'm coming off of the heels of seeing Deep Red and The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and so you watch the best one, and then you watch like one of the other best ones, and then you're watching everything else, so it's kind of hard to not compare it to, well, it wasn't as good as those, it wasn't as good as Deep Red, it wasn't as good as Bird with the Crystal Plumage, but it's different, it's its own thing. And I think this movie, more so than some other Giallo films, is a good Krimi hybrid with Giallo. And yeah, the atmosphere and the tone is really good. some of the kills are like super brutal, and again done in a very well. There's a dichotomy here where Argento's kills can be very violent and very well edited and shot, and then also have elements that are kind of goofy. So I'm thinking of like whenever he's like has like a character's like face getting slammed into something, it's always kind of like, all right, that doesn't really look great, but it's fine. I excuse it. I mean, again, it's like Argento's kind of hard to shit on, although I do kind of shit on his later films. I just think he kind of started losing touch. But Cat o' Nine Tails is great. I wish we could see the movie he wanted to make. Hell, I'd even like to see the movie that the studio wanted him to do, or the promoters, I should say, wanted him to do. But what we got, I think, is a good movie, and it just makes me wonder what he wanted to do, because he really seemed like he was upset that they interfered. Cat o' Nine Tails, great. Number 4, this is where it starts getting hard to place my favorite. But I'm going to say number 4 is A Bay of Blood. I think the movie is good through and through. I think it's entertaining. I think it's like it's never slow or boring. Uh, there are some moments with the kids that kind of feel like, what are we doing? Why are we watching this? But those kids show up and get killed off pretty freaking quickly, and I love that because it kind of introduces the slasher trope. I guess you'd call it a trope in slasher films of the uh, tangential kills, or is it non-tangential kills? The you introduce these characters that are just there to get killed. Like they don't push the. If I recall, they don't push the plot. They just show up to increase the body count, and like if you cut them out, the movie would be fine. But oh my god, it makes the movie so much better that these 4, 5 kids show up and just get brutally murdered. It's it really helps with the movie. But again, Bava's great, never really drops the ball in any of his Giallo films, and A Bay of Blood is classic and really is one of his better efforts and one of the better films of 1971. I've got some others that I enjoy more. Number 3, this is where it starts getting hard, because honestly, these top 3 movies I am still struggling with in placing. So when I get to number 1, I might honestly, like a day later or while I'm editing this, feel like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have chosen this. So this is one I really considered for number 1. But anyways, number 3, Short Night of Glass Dolls. Very, very original. You don't see anything like this in Giallo. It's a great debut effort from Aldo Lado, who makes some of my favorite Giallo movies. It's a really good, compelling script. The story is again. I love these. I love these movies where you're just following a guy who's in love and he's trying to figure out what happened. So Short Night of Glass Dolls reminds me of The Possessed, because there's a very similar thing going where, like, what happened to the girl I love. I'm going to undertake this investigation to find out and get some retribution. And the way that the movie unfolds, where you see that this guy is in this death state, this near death state. Everybody thinks he's croaked, but he's still alive and conscious in his own mind, which is a terrifying concept. I mentioned this like a year ago, that the movie is doing in medias res, in terms of like, let's start in the middle and then let's go back and see what happened earlier. And in most movies, when that happens, I just roll my eyes. Like, what's the Fede Alvarez movie? Don't Breathe. Don't Breathe. I hate the opening. It opens with like right before the third act, and then it's like, 48 hours earlier or whatever it is, and I just hate that. Anytime I see that in a horror movie, I roll my eyes, because it's like, dude, just start where the story starts. But Short Night of Glass Dolls nails this, because he doesn't remember what happened to him. All he knows is he's like, I'm alive, but they think I'm dead. What happened? I have to remember. I have to remember. And he's frantically trying to recall what happened before something happens to his corpse. And he unravels the mystery, and he's still unable to do anything. He actually is able to somewhat move, but he's overpowered. Um, yeah, again, this is such a great script and a great movie, and I really want to say it's number one, but I don't know. I don't know. Um, what else do I have to say about Short Night of Glass Dolls? This is maybe one of John Sorrell's best roles. Yeah, because he's not playing his usual playboy. I mean, he kind of is still. Like he sleeps with one of his one of his work partners, and I think he was sleeping with her before that. I mean, she was clearly like infatuated with him, so it wasn't like she just you know had feels for no reason. Obviously, they had done something, but I think it's a really great investigation, and the way how it goes backwards in time, forward, backwards, forward is it's just done so well. It's this type of thing in someone else's hands easily could have been fumbled, and Aldo Lotto nailed it. Number two, again, I really could say number one also, but I'm gonna say number two is The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward. Um, this this movie is awesome. The music really does make it for me. If you change the music, I'd probably still like it, but Nora Orlandi's score really ranks this up there. Like, as a debut film for Sergio Martino, it's so well shot. It's so well directed. The editing, everything about the presentation of it, along with the music, lifts this movie. And then the script, the Ernesto Gastaldi's script, it has one of those just wild endings where they kind of throw everything at you. It's amazing, and like the hypnotic kind of flashback dream sequences are crazy. Um, it probably could be more graphic with some of the kills, but yeah, there's a lot of great scenes, like the scene where she's being stalked in the parking lot, parking garage. Really well done. Most of my favorite scenes, though, are those um, flashbacks. And then anytime she sees Ivan Rasimov, her ex-boyfriend, the music plays again. It just kind of echoes in the background. It's great. But it's number two. And number one, my favorite Giallo film of 1971 is The Fifth Chord. I love Luigi Bazzoni. I think he needed to have made more Giallo films, and we only got a fistful, and everything he did I think is great. Especially The Fifth Chord. I think The Fifth Chord is one of the best Giallo films that isn't by Bava, Argento, Fulci, Martino, and the few Giallo films that Bazzoni gave us, I just think are all terrific. Footprints on the Moon might be the weakest, even though I love the ending. It might be the weakest, but The Fifth Chord, oh my gosh, comparing The Fifth Chord to The Possessed, I really like The Possessed, but it's got that 60s proto Giallo charm to it, where the 60s proto Giallo films kind of were able to have more freedom because the genre wasn't official yet. And so after Bird of the Crystal Plumage, it was more like, this is the format. And The Fifth Chord kind of follows that format. It kind of does its own thing, of course, but you get more of a official investigation. There is a killer. There's an active killer. And I would even say the Fifth Chord is a Bird with Crystal Plumage clone, but there's just something about it that is very unique. It doesn't feel like it's trying to copy the Bird. Um, but Franco Nero's performance is great. I love watching his character. I love it that he's just this down on his luck alcoholic reporter. Um, Trying to think of some of the kills. The kills are kind of like Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward in terms of like they don't really stand out to me. Like, oh yeah, that's brutal. But yeah, I guess none of the kills in my top three are really like standout kills. It kind of shows that the kills aren't really what make these movies for me. I feel like that's more slashers. Giallo films, I do feel are more about the mystery, the plot, kind of the characters. Although sometimes the characters are a little two dimensional, but I really like the Fifth Chord. I think the investigation is great. The reveal, like I said, the reveal is a little weird. Like, oh, whoa, wait, what? But so be it. I kind of wish it could be a little bit more eloquent here with how I'm describing these films, but the truth is, it's hard for me to say what is my favorite Giallo film of 1971. I really think those three that I said are all great choices. Again, Short Night of Glass Dolls is a great debut from Aldo Lado. It's so it's the most unique of the films on here. Definitely. The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, another great debut film, another great debut Giallo. And this one is, from one of the top directors in the genre. How unique is it? It's a little unique. It's pretty unique. Ernesto Gastaldi is good about always bringing in something really new, but his reveals are always a little too similar in terms, like I said, the guy closest to the woman is not to be trusted. So he kind of does that in this one. And again, I think it's better in this than in the case of the Scorpion's Tail. And then the Fifth Chord, I don't know, like Bazzani just has this way of doing his films that feels the least like an exploitation film or someone who's kind of just like some of the other directors can kind of feel like they know what works in the genre and they're exploiting that. And that, not to say that they're exploitation directors, but Luigi Bazzani always just comes off to me as the most unique in how he directs his films. And he feels like an auteur director that decided, I'm going to make a Giallo film. And so The Possessed has that quality. The Fifth Chord, which is the most Giallo-like of his three Giallo films, has it. And then Footprints on the Moon, which again, some people will say that's not a Giallo, but like, sure it is. Also wildly unique. And yeah, all his films kind of just have this art film quality without being too pretentious for like an American viewer. Like I think a lot of people I know that don't watch Giallo films, I think they could watch The Fifth Chord and they would enjoy it. But yeah. Anyways, those are my top 10 Giallo films for 1971. Let me know what you think. I know you are probably going to disagree with me, and that's fine. One of my favorite things about doing this channel is that I feel this is for a lot of people, especially a lot of people who comment, is that Giallo is just it's such a niche genre that the people that are really into it, I feel like, are the main person in their friend group who who like this genre. And so everyone kind of feels like they're an expert in their own right. And this is not to condescend to anybody, but I can talk to some like friends who are, you know, into cinema about Giallo, but I can tell that they either just like, yeah, it's all right. It's an all right genre, or they haven't seen a lot of films. So they can't really delve too much into it. But this is what I appreciate about doing this channel is that the people who are commenting, it's like, you're just like me. You're like, this is my genre, or like this is something that I dig. And so I invite the discussions in the comments. If you disagree with me, like I said, that's totally fine. You're most likely going to disagree with me. I imagine most people will probably say Bay of Blood might be their favorite. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Let me know. I gave you the 17 movies. I'll say them again real quick if you need it. But yeah, give me your top 10. Give me your top 5 or top 3 or just your top one. But Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, The Fourth Victim, The Cat o' Nine Tails, The Black Belly of the Tarantula, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, Slaughter Hotel, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, An Ideal Place to Kill / Oasis of Fear, The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, The Fifth Chord, Cold Eyes of Fear, A Bay of Blood, The Blood-Stained Butterfly, Short Night of Glass Dolls, and Death Walks on High Heels. Tell me what your favorite films are. Tell me what your favorite performances are, what your favorite score is. Honestly, any of the things that I talked about, I invite you to share with me in the comments because I've got a lot of people who frequently comment, and I just love picking your brains. I love hearing what not just what you think is the best, but why. And I think that's just a very interesting thing also about this genre is that different things speak to different people. And like I was mentioning how I have this soft spot for male characters that are tragically in love in a way that like they don't win, and like their grief of their love kind of carries them into this obsession of either seeking vengeance or just like closure. I love that. I love that. That speaks. I don't know why that speaks to me, but it does. So please tell me your thoughts, any of the things I mentioned. Talk about your favorite actors, your favorite performance, favorite female actors, favorite performances, favorite directors or writers or composer, score, piece of music, favorite scene, favorite ending reveal, favorite kills, favorite script, anything. I invite it. Leave it in the comment section. And otherwise, questions for me, thoughts, curiosities, concerns. Do you have concerns? I hope not. Anyways, this has been fun. These are always a little stressful for me to do because it's just a talking head. None of this stuff is scripted. I do have like the things written out in terms of this is what's in my top 10, but I don't have anything pre-planned what I talk about. And I think that probably comes off as like I'm just kind of rambling. But yeah, thank you for watching. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I have a lot of people who watch my videos on my channel who are not subscribed, and it really, really does help me. I think I finally broke $100 on my YouTube monetization, so I think I'll finally actually get paid from YouTube, which this whole year it seems like they've just been finding any reason to not pay me. A video will come out, and then like a week later it'll be like, you got hit with a copyright, and I have to fight it and be like, dude, I'm modifying this footage. I'm not just showing the movie. The clips are, first off, they're clips, and they're either sped up or slowed down, and the sound is removed, and it's like some of the copyrights are still just like, nope, that's our footage. Nope, you don't get to use it. Most of the times I do the appeal and I win, which is good because it means people can still watch it and I can still make few dollars off of it. But yeah, I really enjoy doing this channel. I love it. I love the conversations I've had with people in the comments. If you want to actually have conversations with me, there's a good handful of people that'll tell you, message me on the King and Giallo Instagram. And I've got a few people that ask me about, hey, do you know about this film? Hey, have you seen this movie? And a lot of times I haven't seen it or I haven't even heard of it. And so it's good to have these conversations. I love talking to y'all about this stuff. And got to plug the Patreon. I will be honest, it's very hard for me to create content for this channel and get things up every week, as well as put up content that is exclusive to the Patreon. So there is some content that is on the Patreon that you can only find there, but I have not been able to backfill it with as much stuff as I would like. But I'm at a point where if you support me monetarily, your name is going in the end, my patron panel or whatever you call it, where you can see your name. So if you want to support me directly, Patreon is going to be the place to do it because, they do take a little bit out, but YouTube YouTube is hard. I've made, I haven't even cashed out on Patreon, but I've made more on Patreon this past year than I have with YouTube. Like I said, YouTube, they only pay you out once you kind of break 100, and I finally broke 100 today. So yes, and one final thing, I've mentioned this before, but going into 2025, I am going to kind of slow down a little bit for the King and Giallo. I will try to have weekly uploads, but I'm going to be segueing into doing some talking heads. That way I don't have to be, day after day editing a video to get a video out on a Monday. I've avoided doing talking heads for a very long time because I have an aversion to it. When I go on YouTube and I just see someone doing a review talking about a movie and it's like just them talking about the movie, I'm like, I don't want to watch this. But some people actually like that. And I feel like I'm at a point now where I've done enough content on this channel that if you've seen some of my videos, you know kind of who I am. And you might just want to hear me ramble. And I have to at least like a YouTube personality before I want to watch them do a talking head and ramble. So heads up, that's going to be happening. So I might take a month or two off in 2025 where I'm not uploading like jolly tallies or film review videos, like my fully edited videos that I've been doing. It's going to be a lot of just turning the camera on, got the microphone, just talking. I will ask people, especially the people that have been talking to me on Instagram, give me some questions, give me some topics, give me some stuff that you want me to do for these episodes, because I still don't have them planned out. I'm still kind of working on it. But anyways, my channel is still small that if you want to reach out to me, you can do it. I'm not one of these channels that's so big that I don't respond to the comments, or, I'm like, I'm too busy, leave me alone. Oh, I got 50 unread messages. Like, it's not like that. So if you want to contact me, Instagram is going to be the best place to do it. I mean, I do read the comments, but on YouTube, but honestly, it's kind of hard for me to know one comment from when you comment in the next video. Like there's just so many handles, people's like names on YouTube, that it's hard. But if I go on Instagram, I can click on a message that someone sent me and I can go through and be like, oh yeah, I know this person. Yeah. Okay. The main commenter I get on YouTube that I'm like, I know this person is again, don't know your name, but the person who gives me their ranking of every movie they watch. It's always like I give it 6.5 doll faces out of 10. Those comments always stand out to me. We're always like, this is quirky. I love it. But yes, thank you for watching. If you got this far, I don't know how much of this is going to be seen in the final edit, but yes, comments. Let's have discussions in these comments. This is Tanner Leeser for The King and Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.